On the night she caught her fiancé kissing her own cousin, her world collapsed. But determined to leave the past behind, she went to the Crescent Moon Ball. Running from a fiancé who had betrayed her, and from a family that treated her like a bargaining chip, she pushed through the crowd in pure desperation until she collided with the wrong man, or the right one. Without recognizing the hooded figure, she whispered, "Dance with me. My ex is circling me. Please stay with me. I don't want to be alone." Having no idea she had just asked the Alpha King of Silvercrest for help. As they danced, the wolf inside him lost control for the very first time. It recognized in her something the man had spent his entire life denying. And when she realized she was in the arms of the king, she panicked and ran. At dawn, still convinced she would be punished, she received a royal invitation to teach piano to the king's sister. And it was there that the feared, silent sovereign began watching her from the shadows, discovering that the only thing capable of quieting his curse was her music. Until one night, when she opened the wrong door and found the king kneeling on the bed, tormented by the curse, and her touch was the only thing able to bring him back. Unable to bear the distance between them, she finally decided to seek him out. But she never expected to find him standing at her bedroom door, as if he had also reached his breaking point. And it is in that moment that two shattered souls finally meet. And, as they share the same bed for the very first time, they realize that the real danger might not be giving in to each other, but trying to survive apart. Chapter 1. Anastasia's heart pounded so hard it drowned out the music. She moved between the dancing couples, pushing aside flowing gowns, dodging diplomatic smiles, never looking back. Max was coming. She felt the weight of his stare, the determination in his steps. Just a few more seconds, and he would catch her. She couldn't let that happen. Not here. Not in front of everyone. She turned sharply between two marble columns, trying to put distance between them. But the ballroom felt like it had shrunk. People everywhere. Curious faces. No place to hide. And then her body collided hard with something solid. Someone. Anastasia stumbled, but firm hands caught her by the arms before she fell. She lifted her eyes quickly, desperate, not even processing who was standing in front of her. "Dance with me?" The words slipped out fast, almost a hoarse whisper. "That clan bastard is cornering me. Please, stay with me. I don't want to be alone." The silence that followed was heavy. The man didn't move. Anastasia blinked, trying to focus, and only then she truly saw. A tall man, dark cloak, hood covering most of his face, leaving only the hard line of his jaw visible. The posture, the presence, the way everyone around stepped aside instinctively, even without looking directly at him. The scent that came from him, earth, pine, wild power, made the wolf inside her stir, restless. No. Raylan, the Alpha King of Silvercrest. Air abandoned Anastasia's lungs as if someone had punched her chest. Her blood froze. She had just asked the Alpha King to dance with her. Worse, she had asked him to stay with her. She had used him as a shield against Max, in front of everyone. Her voice faltered. "Forgive me, Your Majesty. I didn't know. I didn't..." But before she could finish, before she could even step back, his fingers wrapped around her wrist, firm, warm, unquestionable, and he pulled her toward the center of the ballroom. Anastasia felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She couldn't process what was happening. The Alpha King was dragging her to the middle of the dance floor, without saying a word, without giving any explanation, without even looking at her. His hands found her waist. Her fingers were positioned on his shoulder, and the music continued as if the world hadn't just collapsed. Whispers began instantly. Anastasia felt them like needles on her skin, heads turning, eyes widening, secrets spreading like wildfire. Who was the hooded man? Why was he dancing with that girl? No one could see his face, but his posture, the authority in the way he moved, made it clear he wasn't an ordinary man. She couldn't think straight. Her feet moved purely by instinct, following his lead, while her mind fell apart. Every stare felt like judgment. Every whisper sounded like condemnation. What have I done? What have I done? Raylan's hands were too firm, his body too close. The scent coming from him, wild, ancient, impossible to ignore, made her dizzy. Anastasia tried to hold on to some semblance of composure, but terror pulsed with every beat of her heart. He didn't speak, not a single word. He just guided her with a precision that made it clear he had done this for years, commanding everything around him as easily as he commanded a kingdom. And her? She was the desperate fool who had dragged him into this. She shouldn't have come to the Crescent Moon Ball. But her mother insisted, her father decreed, and obedience ran too deep in her veins for her to say no. The grand hall of Silvercrest Castle burned with candles and expectation, turning that immense space into a marketplace of souls, where entire families gambled their daughters' futures on a single look from the Alpha King. It was the night when promises were sealed before the court, when engagements were publicly claimed, becoming unbreakable in the eyes of the kingdom. Max wanted that. He wanted to make the agreement between their families official, to bind her once and for all. Anastasia felt the weight of that inevitability like chains around her wrists. Her throat tightened. Her eyes stung. She couldn't cry. Not in front of everyone. But the despair grew, suffocating, crushing. When the music paused, she couldn't take it anymore. She tore herself away from him, stepping back with trembling hands. "Forgive me," she whispered, her voice breaking. Forgive me." Before he could say anything, before anyone could stop her, Anastasia turned and ran. She crossed the ballroom without looking back, pushing doors, ignoring calls, until the cold night air hit her face like a slap. The castle garden stretched before her, silent, lit only by the full moon hanging above like a mute witness. She kept running, past the manicured flower beds, past the stone fountains, until the trees rose ahead of her. The forest, the only place she could breathe. The only place no one could reach her. Her bare feet, she had lost a shoe somewhere in the garden, sank into damp earth as she pushed deeper between the trees. Her lungs burned. Her gown tore on branches. But none of it mattered. Nothing mattered except escaping. It was over. The punishment would come. The shame, too. Her family would be ruined. And Max? Max was probably furious now. Anger mixed with despair, hot and wild, crawling up her spine like fire. The shift began before she could stop it. Her skin prickled. Bones cracked. Pain came in waves, but Anastasia didn't fight it. She let it happen, let instinct take over, because in wolf form, maybe she could forget. Maybe she could stop feeling, and in seconds, where there had been a terrified girl, there now stood a gray wolf trembling under the moonlight. And then the memory came. The library. Anastasia had come home early that day. One of her piano students had fallen ill, releasing her before schedule. She arrived home with a light heart, thinking she'd find Max reading as he always did. Maybe talk about the ball happening the next day, about the future they were supposedly building together. She had pushed open the library door expecting silence, books, peace. She had found betrayal. Max stood leaning against the oak bookcase, hands gripping the waist of Anastasia's cousin, lips pressed to hers. It wasn't an accidental kiss. It wasn't a stumble. It was intimacy. Something that clearly had been happening for a while. They laughed as if the outside world didn't exist, as if Anastasia didn't exist. She stood in the doorway, unable to move, unable to breathe, watching the scene unfold like a nightmare. It took seconds, or maybe hours, she no longer knew, until her cousin finally noticed her and let out a fake little gasp. Max stepped away slowly, without haste, as if he had been caught doing something mildly inconvenient. Nothing serious. He straightened his clothes, ran a hand through his hair, and when he finally looked at Anastasia, there was no guilt in his eyes, only annoyance. "You came back early," he said, as if she were the intruder. Her cousin started crying immediately, tears falling too quickly to be real, babbling empty apologies, saying it meant nothing, that it was a mistake, that Anastasia needed to understand. But Anastasia didn't understand. She couldn't understand how the man who was supposed to love her, who had sworn to build a life with her, was kissing someone else as if she meant nothing. She said it was over, and she didn't want this anymore. Max laughed, truly laughed, as if she had told a joke. "You don't get to decide that," he replied, voice cold. "Our family's already decided. The deal is made." And in that moment, Anastasia understood. She had never been anything but a piece, a transaction, a means to unite land, money, influence. What she felt, what she wanted, didn't matter. The wolf lifted her snout to the moon and howled. The sound echoed through the trees, long, wounded, carrying all the weight she could no longer hold alone. And then she ran. Ran without destination, without thought, only letting her paws hit the ground, letting the wind cut through her fur, letting the forest swallow her whole. Raylan remained in the center of the ballroom for a moment, watching the direction she had fled. The nobles around him kept whispering, exchanging confused glances, trying to decipher who the hooded man dancing with the piano teacher had been. He ignored them all. He adjusted his hood, turned, and started toward the doors leading to the gardens. No one followed him. No one would dare. Another ball, he remembered from earlier. Another night of suffocating expectations weighing on his shoulders like a cloak of lead. The elders, with their calculating smiles and hopeful eyes, circled the ballroom like vultures, pushing daughters, nieces, cousins toward him. Every damned year it was the same thing, the same farce. Your Majesty must choose a mate. The kingdom needs heirs. What about Lord Brennan's daughter, or the Count of Ashford's niece? Beautiful women, perfectly trained, rehearsed smiles, empty conversations, all wanting the crown, none wanting the man beneath it. Flattery disguised as interest. Raylan was sick of it, completely sick of it. If he needed a woman, he knew where to find one. The brothels were honest, at least. Payment for service. No games, no falseness, no empty promises of eternal devotion. That was why he was hooded. Why he planned to slip away as soon as his obligation to appear was fulfilled. Just a few more minutes, and he could disappear into the side corridors, leaving the nobles to dance and scheme without his oppressive presence. He was almost at the door when someone bumped into him and a hand touched his arm, and the world stopped. Not gradually, not subtly. It was as if something inside him woke up at once with a roar that echoed through his bones. Air left his lungs. His heart stumbled, then raced. Every nerve in his body lit up as if struck by lightning. Raylan turned slowly, almost afraid of what he would find, and then he saw her. A young woman, wide, desperate eyes, silk gown clinging to her body from nervousness, hair slipping from an elaborate hairstyle, beautiful in a way that wasn't curated or crafted, natural, real. "Dance with me?" The words left her mouth quickly, almost a hoarse whisper, but Raylan barely processed them. He was too busy trying to understand what was happening to him. Her scent filled everything. Damp earth, pine, something sweet and wild that made the wolf inside him move in a way he never had. It wasn't simple desire. It wasn't mere attraction. It was as if every cell in his body screamed, "It's her, it's her, it's her." "That clan bastard is cornering me. Please, stay with me, I don't want to be alone." She kept talking, but Raylan barely heard her. He was lost in her eyes, in her presence, in that overwhelming sense of completion that made no sense. He thought, could this be? No. Impossible. Mates were legend. Old stories told by elders on winter nights. Bonds so rare there hadn't been a confirmed case in more than 150 years. Most wolves lived their entire lives without experiencing one. Some even doubted they truly existed. And even in the stories, it was hard to recognize. Inexplicable. A deep knowing that didn't come from logic, but from something more primitive. And you only knew for sure after the claiming. The bite that sealed the bond irreversibly. So it couldn't be that. But then why did he feel as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet? Raylan didn't remember agreeing. He didn't remember making any conscious decision. But suddenly his fingers were closing around her wrist, and the sensation was electric, burning through skin like fire, and he was pulling her toward the center of the ballroom. His hand found her waist. Her fingers landed on his shoulder. The music continued, and Raylan couldn't think. Every sense was amplified, tuned to her and only her. He could hear her heart racing, fast and frightened. He felt the heat of her skin beneath the fabric of her gown. He saw every detail. The trembling eyelashes, the parted lips, the single drop of sweat sliding slowly down her temple. He wanted to lick that sweat. He wanted to pull her closer, eliminate the space between them. He wanted to bury his face in her neck and inhale until there was no air left in his lungs. The wolf inside him roared, demanding, wanting, needing. And the worst part was that he could feel her, not just physically. It was as if her mind were slightly open to him, allowing fragments of emotion, thoughts to slip through, panic, shame, fear. And beneath all that, a spark of something else. Involuntary attraction, curiosity, confusion. He had never loved a woman, never allowed himself to. Love was distraction, vulnerability. But now, holding this stranger in his arms, Raylan felt utterly enthralled, spellbound, as if he had spent his entire life waiting for this moment without knowing it. None of it made sense. Nothing about it made sense. He kept the hood in place, head low enough to hide his face. He could not draw more attention than they already were. The murmurs grew, but Raylan blocked them all out. There was only her. And then the music stopped. She pulled away abruptly, so fast Raylan almost reached to grab her back by pure instinct. "Forgive me," she whispered, voice breaking. Forgive me." And before he could say anything, before he could process the sudden emptiness where she had been, she turned and ran. "No," the wolf snarled. "Go after her. Now." Raylan took one step, two, but forced himself to stop. He couldn't run after her in the middle of the ballroom. He couldn't expose whatever this was even more. He couldn't. But she was running. Something inside him cracked at that realization. He adjusted his hood with slightly trembling hands and strode toward the garden doors. No one followed. No one dared. The cold night air slapped him as he stepped outside. The full moon hung above, huge and silver, illuminating the gardens as if it were daylight. Raylan stopped at the edge of the lawn, eyes scanning the space ahead. She wasn't there. She had gone farther. He drew a deep breath, letting instinct take over. The wolf inside him stirred, alert, sniffing the air with desperate urgency. And then he sensed it. That scent. Stronger now. Clearer. Damp earth, pine, something sweet and wild that made every muscle in him tense, every nerve wake up. It came from the forest. She had gone into the forest. Raylan stepped forward, ready to follow, when another scent sliced through the air. Wolf. She had shifted. His heart pounded harder, instinct roaring for him to go after her, find her, protect her, claim her as... No, control. He needed control. but it was too late. The shift hit him before he could stop it. Bones cracked, skin rippled. And in seconds, Raylan was no longer a man. He was Wolf. Large, black, powerful, and completely obsessed. He sprinted toward the trees, paws pounding the earth, nose lifted as he followed the scent that called to something primal inside him. The scent grew stronger, closer. But then, it began to fade. Raylan ran faster, heart beating like a war drum, lungs burning. She was fast, too fast, incredibly fast for such a young wolf. He leapt over a fallen trunk, dodged a stream, pushed harder against the ground. The scent vanished. Raylan skidded to a stop, sliding on damp leaves, head snapping in every direction. He sniffed the air desperately, searched in widening circles. Nothing. She was gone, as if the forest itself had swallowed her whole. Raylan stood there, panting, fur bristling, his entire body trembling with the urgent need to find her. But she had disappeared, and he would find out who she was. And for the first time in decades, the Alpha King of Silvercrest felt completely powerless. Chapter 2. Anastasia had not slept. She hadn't even tried. She had spent the entire night in the forest, in her wolf form, running until her paws bled, until the howl trapped in her throat finally emptied itself into echoes that no one answered. She returned before dawn, her torn clothes hidden beneath her coat, sneaking through the back door like a thief in her own home and locking herself in her room. Now, sitting at the edge of the bed, still wearing the remnants of her gown, Anastasia stared at her hands and tried not to feel anything. Not the panic, not the shame. I danced with the Alpha King. I danced with him, and then I ran, in front of everyone. Her stomach twisted. She pressed a hand to her mouth, breathing deeply. But the nausea didn't fade. She knew what was coming. She knew there was no escaping punishment. Maybe guards would come for her. Maybe her family would be exiled. Anastasia! Her father's voice cut through the wooden door like an axe. Anastasia swallowed hard, her entire body tensing. There was no more time. She changed clothes quickly. The hallway was too quiet. No servants in sight. No sound coming from the kitchen. As if the house itself were holding its breath. When she pushed open the dining room door, she found a tribunal. Her mother seated, rigid as a statue. Her father standing by the fireplace, jaw clenched, eyes hard. And Max, leaning against the opposite wall, arms crossed, that poisonous smile on his lips. The air felt dense, heavy. "Sit," her father ordered, voice sharp. Anastasia obeyed, her legs trembling as she perched on the edge of the chair, as if she could disappear by making herself small. "Do you have any idea?" her mother began, each word cold and precise as a blade. "What you did last night?" Anastasia opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "You danced with a stranger," her father continued, stepping forward. "At the Crescent Moon Ball, in front of the entire court, in front of the most important families in the kingdom. I didn't know who, and then you ran," her mother snapped, her voice rising. "You abandoned Max in the middle of the ballroom. You turned your back on him as if he were nothing. As if the agreement between our families were nothing. He betrayed me," Anastasia exploded, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "In the library, with that does not matter," her father cut in, slamming his hand on the table. The sound cracked through the air like a gunshot. "What matters is that you humiliated us. You humiliated this family. You stained our name in front of everyone." Anastasia felt her eyes burn, but she forced the tears back. She would not cry. She would not give them that satisfaction. "Do you understand what we sacrificed to secure this alliance?" her father went on, his voice lower now, which only made it more dangerous. "The lands that sustain this family, that feed us, that keep this roof over our heads, they're not ours, Anastasia. They belong to his clan." Anastasia looked at Max. He was still there, leaning casually, watching as if enjoying a particularly entertaining play. "It's true," Max said, pushing himself off the wall and coming to stand beside her chair. Too close. "My father is reconsidering the agreement. After last night's public humiliation, he's wondering if it still makes sense to support your family." Anastasia's blood froze. "You're threatening us?" Max leaned in, his face inches from hers. The smell of tobacco and brandy filled her nose, making her stomach churn. "No, darling." The word dripped venom. "I'm just reminding you that choices have consequences. You chose to humiliate me. Now you live with what comes after." Her mother paled. Her father opened his mouth to speak, but heavy knocks at the front door sliced through the air. They all turned. A servant appeared at the threshold, face pale, holding something in his hands as if it were a bomb ready to explode. "Sir," his voice trembled. "A message. From the castle." Anastasia's heart stopped. The punishment. It had arrived. The servant extended a sealed parchment. Even from a distance, Anastasia could see the seal. Red wax gleaming in the morning light, the silver wolf stamped at the center, the crest of the royal house. Her father snatched the parchment from the servant, dismissing him with a curt gesture. He broke the seal with fingers that trembled slightly. Fear or anger, Anastasia didn't know, and unrolled the paper. The silence that followed was absolute. Her father read, frowned, read again. Confusion took over his features. He lifted his eyes slowly, staring at Anastasia with an expression she couldn't decipher. "What does it say?" Her mother pressed, voice shrill. Her father looked down at the parchment again, as if the words might change. "It's an invitation." His voice sounded disbelieving. "For her." Anastasia blinked. "What?" "Lady Eleni, the Alpha King's sister, needs a new piano tutor." Her father read slowly, as if each word were a trap. "Anastasia has been personally recommended for the position. She is to present herself at the castle in 3 days." Silence fell like a stone. Max reacted first, pushing off the chair. "That makes no sense." Her mother exchanged a look with her father, their eyes gleaming with something dangerous. Hope. Ambition. "It is a great honor," her mother murmured, her voice suddenly calculating. "Teaching the royal family." "And the payment must be generous," her father added, folding the parchment with exaggerated care. Anastasia felt her stomach drop like an anchor. None of it made sense. Not after the ball. Not after using him, running from him, creating a scandal in front of the entire court. It's a trap. It has to be. "I'm not going," she whispered. Her mother's eyes widened as if Anastasia had blasphemed. "You are going." "It's a royal summons, not a suggestion." "Don't be foolish," her father snapped. Anastasia knew stories. She knew the Alpha King never acted without reason, and nothing involving him was ever simple. "I said I'm not going." The slap came before she could brace for it. Her mother's hand sliced through the air and struck Anastasia's face with enough force to whip her head aside. Pain exploded, hot, sharp, and the taste of blood filled her mouth. "You are going," her mother said, voice shaking with fury. "And you will be grateful for the opportunity. Refusing would be a grave offense, worse than any ballroom scandal." Anastasia held her face, eyes burning, but she didn't cry. She would not give them that. Her father turned to Max, expression calculating. "This even solves our problem for now. She stays away, she works, the rumors cool, and when she returns, we can resume the engagement discreetly." Max took his time to answer. He studied Anastasia for a long moment, those cold eyes assessing. Then the smile returned. He walked toward her, leaned down, and gripped her chin with fingers too firm, forcing her to look at him. Look on the bright side, darling. You'll have time to reflect. We'll be waiting when you return. We, as if he already owned her. Anastasia felt the trap tighten around her neck like a rope. Staying meant marrying Max, being chained to a man who betrayed her and felt no remorse. Leaving meant facing the Alpha King, stepping into the wolf's den, confronting whatever he planned for her. There was no escape. Only different paths to the abyss. You leave in 3 days, her father decreed, folding the parchment and pocketing it. Pack your things and behave. We don't need more scandals. Matter closed. The 3 days passed like fog. On the night before the journey, the door opened without her permission. Her cousin entered wearing a smile too sweet, too fake, her eyes bright with poorly disguised malice. I came to say goodbye, she announced, sitting on the bed as if she had every right. Going to the castle. How lucky you are. Anastasia kept folding a dress, refusing to look at her. Lucky, her cousin repeated, adjusting her blonde hair with exaggerated care. Who would have imagined that you, of all people, would catch the king's attention? Curious he doesn't even know you. How exactly did that invitation reach you? What did you do to get his attention? Anastasia rolled her eyes, and she thought, I'll let you stay curious. Let you think I seduced the king. But then she decided to ask, do you have no shame? Her voice came out low, controlled. For what you did. Her cousin blinked, innocence so fake it hurt to look at. Shame for what? The library, Max, me. Her cousin's smile grew, slow, satisfied. Oh, that. She laughed, light, as if speaking of something trivial. It was just a little fun, Anastasia. You took it so seriously. Max is attractive, you know, and you're always so busy with your piano lessons, your students. He was lonely, poor thing. Anastasia turned, blood boiling. Poor thing? Yes. Her cousin stood, smoothing her dress. But don't worry. When you come back, I'll step aside. I promise. A lie so obvious it was practically an insult. Get out, Anastasia said. Her cousin walked to the door but paused on the threshold, turning back with that venomous smile. Good luck at the castle, cousin. I hope the king is gentle with you. The door closed with a soft click. Anastasia stood there, alone, anger and despair battling inside her chest like caged animals. The morning of departure dawned gray, as if the sky itself felt the weight of what was coming. The carriage stopped at the gates of Silvercrest at 10 o'clock sharp, and Anastasia stepped out on trembling legs, her small suitcase feeling impossibly heavy. No family member came to see her off. Not her mother. Not her father. Only the coachman, who barely looked at her. Perfect. The castle was even more imposing up close. Dark gray stone that seemed to swallow the light, towers piercing the sky like spears, narrow windows like watchful eyes. Cold, intimidating, impossible to ignore. At the top of the marble staircase, a woman waited. Tall, rigid, her hair pulled into a bun so tight it looked painful. A dark, immaculate dress, and a posture that made it clear she tolerated no nonsense. Miss Anastasia? The voice was dry, formal. Yes. I am Madame Crowley, the castle's housekeeper. Follow me. Anastasia climbed the steps, her suitcase bumping against her leg, and followed the woman inside. The castle was a labyrinth. Endless corridors of cold stone, ancient tapestries on the walls depicting battles and ferocious wolves, silence so thick each step echoed like a war drum. Servants appeared and vanished like ghosts, heads down, never meeting her eyes. Finally, Madame Crowley stopped before a carved door adorned with wild roses and running wolves. She knocked 3 times, waited, then opened it without waiting for a response. Lady Eleni, your new teacher has arrived. The room was completely different from the rest of the castle. Bright, airy, with huge windows letting the sun in. the sun that had finally broken through the clouds. A grand piano stood at the center, glossy black, so well cared for that Anastasia almost felt like crying. And beside the piano, a girl. 12, maybe 13. Dark hair braided, a simple but elegant dress, and eyes, the same eyes as the king, intense. But where his were cold, hers sparkled with life. The girl stood, a timid smile appearing. "Hello." Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "I'm Eleni. Are you the teacher my brother sent for?" Anastasia's stomach turned. My brother. He sent for. Yes, I'm Anastasia. I've been teaching piano for a few years." Eleni's smile widened. "Finally." She ran to the piano, sitting on the bench with excitement. The last teacher only talked about posture and theory. She never let me actually play. "Can you really teach me?" Despite everything, the fear, the confusion, the crushing weight of the castle, something softened inside Anastasia's chest. "I can," she murmured. "Let's see how you play." Eleni began to play. Clumsy, yes, her fingers stumbling over the notes. But there was effort there. Will. Passion hidden beneath poor technique. Anastasia sat beside her, corrected her posture, adjusted her fingers, and they began to play. Chapter 3. 1 week. 7 whole days since Anastasia had arrived at the castle, and she had not seen the king a single time. Not that she had been looking for him. Of course not. She was far too busy with the lessons, with Eleni, with the rigid routine Madame Crowley imposed as law. Waking before sunrise, quick breakfast, piano lessons from 8 until 11, lunch, free afternoon to study sheet music or rest, dinner at 7, early to bed, simple, controlled, safe. But at night, when the castle fell into silence and Anastasia was left alone with her thoughts, the memory returned. The ball, the dance, his hands holding hers. That scent, earth, pine, something wild that made the wolf inside her wake as it never had before. And then she would wake with her heart racing, her skin prickling, with no idea why. Eleni was the opposite of the castle. Where everything around them was cold stone and heavy silence, she was light. She talked non-stop, laughed too loudly, had strong opinions about everything. And she played the piano with a clumsy passion that made Anastasia smile even on the hardest days. "You are much better than the last teacher," Eleni had said on the 4th day, stopping halfway through a scale to look at Anastasia with those gray eyes so much like her brother's. She only complained, said I had no talent. "You do have talent," Anastasia had corrected, adjusting the girl's fingers on the keys. "You just need practice, and patience." Eleni had pulled a face. "Patience is boring." Anastasia had laughed. "I know, but it is necessary." Now, on the 7th day, Eleni was particularly distracted. She missed the same notes again and again, sighed loudly, and kept glancing out the window as if she were waiting for something. "Eleni?" Anastasia called softly. "Is everything all right?" The girl stopped playing, her hands falling into her lap. She stayed quiet for a moment, biting her lower lip, before finally speaking. "Are you afraid of my brother?" The question caught Anastasia off guard. Why do you ask that?" "Because everyone is." Eleni turned on the bench, facing Anastasia directly. "Everyone in the castle. The servants walk on tiptoe when he passes. The advisors talk softly around him. Even the guards get tense." Anastasia chose her words carefully. "He is the Alpha King. It is natural for people to respect him." "It is not respect," Eleni corrected, her voice dropping. "It is fear. They are afraid of what he can do, of what he becomes when he loses control." Anastasia's stomach clenched. "Loses control?" Eleni looked away, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her dress. There is something wrong with him, with our bloodline. The elders do not talk about it openly, but I listen. Late at night, when they think I am asleep. They say the alphas in our family are cursed. Anastasia sat beside her on the bench, her heart beating faster. Cursed how? They get aggressive, violent. As they get older, they slowly lose their reason. Our grandfather died young because he could no longer control his rage. Our father, too. Eleni looked at Anastasia, and there was real pain in those young eyes. Raylan already has episodes. Sometimes he locks himself in his room and I hear roaring, things breaking, and then he spends days without talking to anyone. Anastasia felt something tighten in her chest. Eleni, the council wants him to marry, the girl went on, the words coming faster now, as if she needed to release something she had been holding in for far too long. They think a wife can calm him, that having a mate might help. But Raylan refuses. He says he will not chain anyone to him, that it would be cruel. They fell silent for a moment. Anastasia did not know what to say. How to comfort a girl who carried so much fear for her brother. Then Eleni smiled. It was small, sad, but genuine. I would love it if you married him. Anastasia blinked, sure she had misheard. What? You are kind, Eleni explained, as if it were obvious. And you are not afraid of him. I noticed. When I talk about Raylan, you do not tense up like the others. And if you married him, you could stay here forever, teaching piano forever. Despite the weight of the conversation, Anastasia could not hold back a smile. You are very clever, you know that? I know. Eleni shrugged, mimicking fake modesty in a way that made Anastasia laugh for real. But a king does not marry someone like me, Anastasia said gently, the reality heavy in her voice. I have nothing to offer politically. No land, no title, no important alliance. I am just a piano teacher. You are more than that, Eleni insisted, stubborn. I know you are. Anastasia did not answer, because there was no answer she could give. Instead, they went back to the piano. But the words stayed, echoing in Anastasia's mind long after the lesson ended. Cursed, violent, losing his reason. And still, when she thought of the Alpha King, she did not feel afraid. Raylan was avoiding Anastasia. He knew it. He admitted it to himself in the lonely hours before dawn, when the castle slept and he stayed awake, fighting thoughts he should not have. 1 week since he had brought her to the castle, and every single one of those days had been torture. Because he felt her, all the time. No matter where he was in the castle, he always knew where she was, as if an invisible thread connected them, constantly pulling him in her direction. In the morning, he felt when she woke. Her scent, sweet, feminine, impossible to ignore, drifted down the corridors until it reached him. In the afternoon, when she gave lessons to Eleni, Raylan caught himself stopping near the music room, just to listen, her voice explaining chords. The soft laugh when Eleni said something funny. The sound of the piano played by deft fingers. And at night, it was worse. Because at night, Raylan dreamed. He dreamed of her lying beside him, hair spread across the pillow, bare skin glowing under the moonlight. He dreamed of her hands on his chest, her mouth on his, her body arching under his touch. He woke drenched in sweat, his breathing rough, wanting something he could not have. He did not understand. None of it made sense. Raylan had known women. He had lain with a few. He knew what desire was. But this was different. It was obsession. It was need. It was as if every cell in his body cried out for her, demanding closeness, contact, possession. And it was getting worse. The fits of rage that once came once a month now threatened him daily. Anger simmered just beneath the surface, ready to explode at the slightest trigger. Raylan felt the wolf clawing inside, wanting out, wanting to hunt, wanting to claim. But claim what? Whom? Her. The answer came instinctively, inevitably, and that terrified him. Because Raylan knew what it meant. He knew what his bloodline carried. The curse that had destroyed his grandfather, his father, every alpha before them. The growing aggression, the slow loss of reason, the transformation from man into monster. He could not drag Anastasia into that. He could not condemn her to live beside someone who would eventually lose control, who would become dangerous, unpredictable. But he could not stay away either. So he avoided. He kept his distance. He stayed in his quarters when he knew she would be in the corridors. He rushed through meetings so he would not risk crossing paths with her. It was working. More or less. Until it did not work anymore. The council meeting had been a disaster. 3 hours of old men arguing about alliances, marriages, heirs, pushing names of women at Raylan as if he were a breeding stallion. Lord Brennan's daughter would be a wise choice, Your Majesty. His lands border... The Count of Ashford's niece would bring an alliance with the North and... Perhaps the Baron Whitmore's widow, still young, already proven she can... Raylan had endured it in silence, as he always did, hearing the same names that were recited at every meeting. But he could not take it anymore. His jaw was clenched. His hands gripped the arms of the chair. His breathing was measured. Inside, though, the fury grew. Hot, violent, uncontrollable. The wolf roared, demanding he destroy something. Demanding he send all those old fools to hell. Demanding that, Your Majesty, are you all right? The chief advisor's voice had dragged him back. Raylan realized, too late, that his hands were shaking, that his claws were starting to push through his fingertips, that his eyes were probably already glowing gold. He had shot to his feet. Meeting adjourned. And he had left before anyone could protest. Now he walked the empty corridors, trying to control the transformation threatening to break free. He drew deep breaths, counted to 10, closed his eyes. It did not work. The rage throbbed, growing, demanding release. Raylan felt his bones begin to crack, his skin prickle. No, not here, not in the corridors. He needed to reach his chambers, lock himself in, let it happen far from everyone else. But then he heard it. Music. A piano being played somewhere close by. Soft, delicate notes, drifting through the air like fresh water. And something inside Raylan stopped. The fury did not vanish, but it drew back, like a wave being pulled back into the sea. The tremor in his hands eased. His breathing grew less ragged. Raylan turned his head, following the sound. The music room. Of course, he should not go there. He knew that. He should keep walking, lock himself in his room, wait for it to pass. But his feet were already moving. He pushed the cracked door open slowly, silently, and he saw her. Anastasia sat at the piano, alone, completely unaware he was there. Her fingers danced over the keys with natural grace, playing something Raylan did not recognize. Melancholic, beautiful, painful. Her eyes were closed. Her lips were gently parted. Her body swayed slightly with the music. And Raylan felt something inside him shatter and rebuild itself all at once. The fury vanished, completely. In its place came something just as intense, but different, warm, sweet, devastating. He took a step into the room, then another, moving toward her on instinct, unable to resist. That was when Anastasia felt it. Her fingers slipped on the keys. The music stopped. She opened her eyes and turned her head. And when her gaze met his, the world stopped. Raylan saw her eyes widen, saw color rise along her neck, saw her lips part slightly, as if she were about to speak but had forgotten the words. And he felt everything. Her heart speeding up, her breath turning unsteady, her scent changing, becoming sweeter, stronger, more desire. She felt it too. She felt whatever it was thrumming between them. Raylan took another step, then forced himself to stop, because if he got any closer, if he touched her, he would not be able to stop. "Keep playing," he heard his own voice say, rough and low. "Please." Anastasia blinked, still looking at him, clearly confused. But then, slowly, she turned back to the piano. Her fingers settled on the keys, hesitant at first, then steadier. She began to play. But it was different now, more intense, as if she were playing for him, to calm him, to reach him. Raylan stood there by the door, watching, unable to move, unable to leave. The music flowed, and with it, peace. True peace. Something Raylan had not felt in years. He wanted to go to her, sit beside her on the bench, touch her hair, feel her skin. He wanted to kiss her right there, press his mouth to hers until neither of them could breathe. He wanted to pull her into his lap, feel her weight against him, taste every inch of the body that haunted him every night. He wanted... No. Raylan closed his eyes, fighting the impulse, fighting the need that threatened to consume him. When he opened his eyes again, he forced himself to take a step back. Then another. Anastasia stopped playing. She turned. Their gazes met again. And Raylan saw in her eyes the same confusion, the same desire, the same question hammering in his own head. What is happening to us? But he said nothing. He could not. Because if he opened his mouth, if he let the words out, he did not know what he might say. And he was afraid, truly afraid, of what might happen. So he only nodded once, a brief, tense movement, and left. He closed the door behind him and leaned his back against the corridor wall, his heart pounding like a war drum. What is happening to me? Anastasia stayed where she was, staring at the closed door, unable to process what had just happened. He had been there, in the same room as her, looking at her with those eyes that seemed to see straight through her. And when she had started to play, she had felt something shift. The air had grown thicker, charged, as if there were electricity pulsing between them. Anastasia pressed a hand to her chest, trying to calm her racing heart. Why did he affect her this much? 2 days passed. Anastasia did not see the king again, but she felt when he was near. It was strange, inexplicable. When she walked the corridors, sometimes she would stop, her heart speeding up for no reason. And seconds later, she would see his shadow turning some distant corner. He never came closer. He just looked, and then vanished. It was maddening. That night, Anastasia woke abruptly, her heart pounding, her skin slick with sweat. She sat up in bed, breathing hard, trying to understand what had startled her. It had not been a nightmare. It had been a feeling. Rage, pain, despair. As if someone were screaming inside her head without words. Only pure emotion. Violent, uncontrollable. And then she heard a roar. Loud, ferocious. Rolling through the castle corridors like thunder. Anastasia froze. Enraged wolf. The king. It had to be him. She should stay in her room. Madame Crowley had been clear about the rules. If she heard roaring at night, she was to stay locked in. Not come out. Not get involved. When the king is like that, no one disturbs him. That is an order. But Anastasia was already getting up. Already walking to the door. Already opening it. The corridor was empty. Silent. But she felt it. She felt the direction that suffocating emotion came from. She turned left, then right, climbed stairs, past closed doors, until she stopped in front of a pair of double doors. Heavy. Carved with wolves and moons, the king's chambers. Another roar came from inside, weaker this time, exhausted. Anastasia did not think. She simply pushed the door and stepped in. The room was huge, a massive bed in the center, tall windows showing the full moon outside, dark furniture scattered around. But Anastasia barely registered any of it, because he was there. Raylan. Naked, completely naked. On the bed, on his knees, his body bent forward, shaking violently. The transformation was ending. Anastasia saw it. Fur receding, bones shifting back into place, claws shrinking into human fingers. It looked agonizing, obvious in the way he panted, in the way every muscle in his body strained. And then he lifted his head. His eyes met hers, golden, glowing like molten metal under the moonlight. He went still, just staring, as if he could not believe she was there. Anastasia took a step in, then another. No. His voice came out rough, broken. Leave. Please. But she did not leave. She kept moving until she was close to the bed, close to him. Raylan tried to stand, but his body refused. He swayed, almost tumbling off the bed. Anastasia reacted on instinct. She rushed forward, her hands reaching him, catching him before he fell. His skin was hot, feverish, the powerful body trembling under her hands. I have you, she whispered, not knowing where the words came from. It is all right. I have you. Raylan gasped. His eyes, still golden, still more wolf than man, locked on her face with an intensity that knocked the air from her lungs. She helped him lie down, cradled his head carefully, lowering it until it rested on the pillow. His hair was damp with sweat. His chest rose and fell too fast. Anastasia should leave. She knew that. Instead, she sat on the edge of the bed and slid her hand through his hair, slowly, gently, as if she were soothing a wild animal. And it worked. His body loosened. His breathing steadied. His eyes started to return to normal. They stayed like that for an unknown stretch of time. Anastasia stroking his hair, Raylan looking at her as if she were a miracle. Then his fingers moved, slowly, hesitantly, until they closed around her wrist. They did not squeeze. They only held, softly. You need to go. His voice was more controlled now, but still hoarse. Please, Anastasia. Go back to your room. Anastasia looked at him, at the eyes that were pleading, at the hand holding her wrist as if gripping a lifeline. Why? She whispered. Because if you do not... Raylan closed his eyes, his jaw tightening. If you do not, I will not hold myself back. The silence that followed was thick with everything neither of them said. Anastasia felt her heart pound harder, felt heat rise under her skin, felt the desire, the same cursed desire that had been tormenting her, surge back with renewed strength. She should go. It was sensible. It was safe. But she looked at him, at the man fighting demons no one else could see, carrying a weight no one else could feel. And she did not want to go. She wanted to stay, to hold on, But Anastasia nodded, slowly, agreeing without words. She rose from the bed, feeling his hand slide from her wrist, feeling the loss like something physical. She walked to the door, opened it, looked back one last time. Raylan lay where she had left him, eyes fixed on her, his expression shattered. And Anastasia knew, with absolute certainty, that she was lost. Chapter 4. The days that followed were strange. Anastasia kept her routine, lessons with Alini, quiet meals, walks through the inner gardens. But everything felt different now, as if the world had tilted on its axis that night, when she had entered his room and held a broken king in her arms. She did not see Raylan, not directly, but she knew he was there. She felt him whenever he passed through nearby corridors, even when she could not see him. The air shifted, grew denser, charged with something electric that made her skin prickle. Sometimes she turned her head quickly and caught only the silhouette of him disappearing around a distant corner. He continued keeping his distance, but it was different now. Before, it had felt like simple avoidance. Now it felt like a fight, as if every step away from her cost him something. And the rumors began. Anastasia heard them in the servants' whispers, in the muffled conversations that died the moment she walked into a room. The king is different. Calmer. No fits of rage this week. No roaring at night. Anastasia pretended not to hear, pretended she did not notice the weight of curious glances every time she walked down the corridors, pretended her heart did not race whenever someone mentioned the king. But inside, she felt everything, and she understood nothing. That night, Anastasia went to bed early. She was exhausted, not physically, but emotionally, as if she had been carrying an invisible weight that grew heavier each day. She lay in the enormous bed, pulled the sheets up to her chin, and closed her eyes, trying to quiet her mind. Sleep came quickly, too quickly, and with it, the dream. Raylan was there, in her room, walking toward the bed with slow, deliberate steps. He wore only dark trousers, his bare chest revealing defined muscles, bronze skin glowing under the pale moonlight streaming through the window. His eyes, gray, intense, burning, locked on her as if she were the only thing that existed in the world. Anastasia tried to sit up, but her body would not respond. She was trapped, not by ropes or chains, but by something far subtler. His gaze, his presence, the desire pulsing between them like a living force. He reached the bed, stilled, leaned down, and whispered in a low, rough voice, "You belong to me." Then his hand touched her face, slid along her cheek, traced her jaw, moved down her neck slowly, leaving a trail of fire across her skin. Anastasia gasped. Her entire body woke in ways it should not. Heat surged through her, urgent, desperate. His hand kept descending, over her collarbone, between her breasts, down her stomach. Then he leaned closer, his lips so near hers she could feel his breath warming her mouth. "Tell me I am yours," he commanded, his voice a low growl. And Anastasia woke. She sat up with a jolt, gasping, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. Her skin was damp with sweat. Her entire body throbbed with a desire so intense it bordered on pain. She pressed a hand to her chest, trying to steady her breathing, but it was useless, because she still felt it. The phantom touch of his hand on her skin, the heat, the need threatening to consume her whole. What is happening to me? Anastasia shoved the sheets aside and stood. She needed air, space, anything to pull her out of that state. She walked to the window and pulled the curtains open. The moon outside was nearly full, silver and enormous, illuminating the gardens as if it were daytime. It was not enough. Anastasia turned and went to the door, opened it. The corridor was dark, empty, silent. She stepped out and collided with something solid. No, someone. Strong hands caught her by the arms before she fell, and the scent, earth, pine, wild, flooded her senses, making the entire world stop. Anastasia lifted her eyes. Raylan, he was right there, in front of her door, his hand raised as if he had been about to knock. They froze, simply staring at each other, both breathing unevenly, hearts pounding out of rhythm. Anastasia saw the same desperation in his eyes that she felt, the same need, the same lost battle. Raylan began, his voice rough. Then he stopped, closed his eyes, took a deep breath. "I hope you can forgive me for this." Anastasia barely had time to process the words before he continued. "But I cannot take it anymore." And then he kissed her. It was not gentle. It was not hesitant. It was devastating. His mouth claimed hers with a hunger that made Anastasia's knees buckle. But he held her, pulling her against him, one hand gripping her waist, the other sliding up into her hair, holding her firmly. Anastasia gasped against his lips, and Raylan seized the moment, deepening the kiss, his tongue sliding into her mouth, exploring, claiming. His taste flooded her senses, masculine, dark, addictive. Anastasia felt her entire body melt, her rational mind dissolve, leaving only raw sensation. Her hands rose instinctively, gripping his shoulders, nails digging into his skin through the thin shirt he wore. Raylan growled low against her mouth. The sound vibrated through Anastasia's body, straight to the center of the desire pulsing harder and harder. He pushed her back, and Anastasia went willingly, her feet stumbling until her back hit the wall. Raylan pressed his body against hers, and she felt every inch of him, solid, hot, impossible to ignore. The kiss grew more urgent, more desperate, as if they were both drowning, and this was the only air left in the world. Raylan's hands slid down her sides, gripping her waist, her hips, pulling her even closer, eliminating the last bits of space between them. And Anastasia let him. She arched into him, her fingers threading into his hair, pulling, holding, kneading. Raylan tore his mouth from hers only long enough to breathe. His forehead pressed to hers, his eyes, now golden, burning with something wild, locked on hers. Anastasia. Her name left him like a prayer, like a warning. "If you want me to stop, say it now." Anastasia should. She knew she should. It was the sensible, logical, safe thing to do. But she looked at him, at those eyes blazing with desire as fierce as hers, at the body trembling with the effort to control himself, at the man battling his demons just to protect her, and she did not want him to stop. She wanted this. She wanted him, even if it was wrong, even if it was madness. "Do not stop," she whispered. And she saw the exact moment his control shattered. Raylan let out a deep primal growl and kissed her again. But this time he grabbed her by the waist and lifted her. Anastasia wrapped her legs around him instinctively, feeling his strength, his heat, his need. He carried her to the bed, laying her down with surprising gentleness despite the urgency vibrating between them. Anastasia barely had time to breathe before he was over her, his weight deliciously pinning her to the sheets. His hands were everywhere now, sliding down her sides, moving beneath her thin nightgown, touching bare skin that burned under his attention. Anastasia arched into him, a soft sound escaping her lips when his fingers traced the curve of her waist, moving up, up. "Perfect," Raylan murmured against her neck, his lips kissing and lightly biting her sensitive skin. "You are perfect." Anastasia's hands went to his shirt, pulling, wanting to feel his skin against hers. Raylan helped, ripping the shirt over his head and tossing it aside, and then he was there, bare from the waist up, defined muscles, bronze skin, scars telling stories Anastasia suddenly ached to know. She slid her hands over his chest, feeling his heart beating too fast, too hard beneath her palms. Raylan closed his eyes, his jaw clenching as if her touch were a sweet kind of torment. Then his eyes opened again, locking onto hers. And there was something different now. Something deeper than desire. There was reverence, admiration, something dangerously close to devotion. "You have no idea," he said, his voice rough, "what you do to me." He kissed her again. But it was different now, still intense, still desperate, but with tenderness woven through it. Care. as if she were something precious he was terrified of breaking. Her nightgown vanished at some point. Anastasia did not know when or how. She only felt the cool air on her skin, then the heat of his body covering hers, warming, protecting. His hands explored every curve, every line, every inch of skin as if memorizing her. And Anastasia let him, lost in the sensation, in the touch, in the way he made her feel, wanted, cherished, needed. When they finally joined, it was with a shared breath, a moment of perfect connection that made everything else stop. The world, time, fear, all of it. There was only them. Only this. And it was devastating in the best possible way. Afterward, when their breathing finally slowed and the world returned to focus, Anastasia rested in his arms, her head on his chest, listening to his still rapid heartbeat. Raylan ran his fingers through her hair, slowly, gently, as if he had all the time in the world. They stayed quiet for a long time. It was not uncomfortable. It was peace. True peace. Then Raylan spoke, his voice low, almost hesitant. "You know this changes everything, do you not?" Anastasia lifted her head to look at him. "What do you mean?" His eyes met hers, and there was weight there. Fear, and something that looked like fragile hope on the verge of breaking. "I cannot let you go now," he admitted. "Not after this. Not when—" He stopped, closing his eyes as if the next words cost him too much. "Not when you are the only thing that has brought me peace in years." Anastasia's heart tightened. She placed her hand on his cheek, stroking gently. "Raylan, but I cannot keep you either," he continued, opening his eyes, and the pain in them was palpable. "It would not be fair. Not with what I am. With what I carry." "What are you talking about?" Raylan exhaled, heavy, tired, as if carrying centuries on his shoulders. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Something I should have told you before. Before I did this with you." Anastasia sat up, pulling the sheet over her body, fear blooming in her chest. "What is it?" Raylan sat up too, running both hands through his hair in a frustrated gesture. "There's something wrong with me, with my bloodline." The words came hard, forced. "A curse. No one knows exactly where it comes from, or why, but it has been here for generations. The alphas in my family. As they age, they grow aggressive, violent. They slowly lose their reason until nothing is left but fury." Anastasia listened, her heart tightening more with each sentence. "My grandfather died at 40, Raylan went on, staring at his hands as if he expected to see blood there. He had to be restrained by his own guards because he attacked innocents. My father managed to control it longer, but in the end, it was the same. He died in battle because he went into blind rage and could not tell ally from enemy. Raylan, I already feel it happening," he interrupted, his voice cracking slightly. "The attacks are getting more frequent, more intense. Anything can push me to the edge. And I know that eventually I will not be able to fight it anymore." He finally looked at her, his eyes wet. "That is why I never wanted anyone. Never wanted to get close to anyone. Because I do not want to drag someone into this. I do not want you to live afraid of me, to watch me become a monster." Anastasia felt the burn of tears, but forced them back. "You are not a monster." "Not yet," he corrected softly. "But I will be. It is inevitable. It happens to all of us." "Then why?" Anastasia swallowed hard. "Why did you do this? Why tonight?" Raylan let out a humorless laugh. "Only pain. Because I am selfish. Because I could not resist anymore. Because you—" He squeezed his eyes shut. because you calm me in ways I cannot explain. When you are near, the fury pulls back. When you touch me, I feel peace. And I needed to have that. Have you. Even if only for one night. The tears came then. Anastasia felt them fall but did not wipe them away. You do not want me? She asked, her voice small. I want you. Raylan answered instantly, fiercely. Gods, how I want you. More than I ever should. More than is safe. But wanting is not enough. Not when it means condemning you to a life beside someone cursed. I do not care about the curse. You should. Raylan rose from the bed, grabbing his trousers from the floor and pulling them on. You deserve someone whole. Someone who can give you a future without fear, without danger. Raylan, please. You need to go, he said, and the words came sharp, final. Back to your home, back to your family, away from me. Anastasia felt the ground vanish beneath her. What? I lost control tonight, Raylan continued, turning to face her. His expression shuddered now. Distant. I did something I should not have done. Crossed a line I had no right to cross. And I cannot trust myself near you. You would not hurt me. You do not know that. His voice rose, and for a moment, Anastasia saw his eyes flash gold before returning to normal. You do not know what I am capable of when the fury takes over, and I will not risk it, not with you. So, you are sending me away? Anastasia whispered, her voice trembling. After being with me? Raylan closed his eyes, his jaw clenching. Yes. The silence that followed was crushing. Anastasia felt something inside her break. Something fragile, precious, barely beginning to form. Shattered before it had a chance to grow. I do not want to go, she whispered. I know. Raylan opened his eyes, and there was so much pain in them that Anastasia almost could not bear it. But you must. Please, Anastasia. You must go before I change my mind, before this becomes even harder for both of us. Anastasia wanted to argue, wanted to scream, wanted to tell him she would not let him fight alone against demons he had never chosen. But she looked at his face, the determination tangled with despair, and understood. He had already decided. Nothing she said would change it. So she nodded. Slowly, agreeing without truly agreeing. Raylan released the breath he had been holding. I will make the arrangements. You leave tomorrow. And then he left. Closed the door behind him, leaving Anastasia alone on the bed that still carried the warmth of their bodies, his scent, the memory of what they had shared. Anastasia pulled her knees to her chest and let the tears fall. Because she loved him. She did not know how, but she loved him. Morning came far too quickly. Anastasia packed her small suitcase in silence, placing the few clothes she had brought, her books, her sheet music. Every movement was automatic, mechanical. Eleni appeared at the door, her eyes swollen from crying. You do not have to go, the girl said, her voice breaking. I can talk to Raylan. I can convince him. You cannot, Anastasia interrupted gently. He has already decided. But it is not fair, Eleni protested. You help him. Everyone sees it. He is better with you here. Why does he not see it? Anastasia knelt in front of the girl, cupping her cheeks with both hands. He does see it. That is why he is sending me away. Because he is afraid of hurting me. He would never hurt you. Never. I know. Anastasia smiled softly, even through the tears. But he does not know that. Not yet. Eleni threw her arms around her, sobbing against Anastasia's shoulder. Will you come back? Anastasia did not know the answer. Not honestly. But she said, yes, I will come back. because she wanted to believe it, needed to believe it. The carriage waited at the front of the castle. Madame Crowley stood there, her expression unreadable, though something in her eyes hinted at understanding. Perhaps pity. "Take care, miss," the woman said. That was all. Anastasia climbed into the carriage, placed her suitcase beside her, and sat by the window. And she searched. Looked for him in the castle windows, on the towers, anywhere. But Raylan did not appear. He did not come to say goodbye. He did not come to see her leave. The carriage began to move, and Anastasia looked back, watching the castle grow smaller and smaller until it disappeared entirely, taking with it the heart she had left behind. Chapter 5. The house was exactly as Anastasia had left it. Same walls, same furniture. But she was different now. The carriage stopped out front, and Anastasia stepped down alone, the suitcase in her hand weighing like lead. No one came out to greet her. No servant, no family member. Great. She pushed the front door open and walked in. The hallway was empty, but she could hear voices coming from the dining room. She recognized them immediately. Her mother, her father, and Max. Of course. Anastasia drew a deep breath, bracing herself, and walked toward the room. The three of them were seated at the table, wine glasses in hand, talking like old friends. They stopped when she entered, turning to look at her. Her mother was the first to speak. "You are back." It was not a question. It was not a welcome. It was just a statement, cold and hollow. "I am back," Anastasia confirmed, dropping the suitcase on the floor. Max smiled. That smile she hated, arrogant, possessive, poisonous. "Welcome back, darling. We missed you." A lie so obvious it was almost insulting. "The king dismissed you?" her father asked, standing up, his expression hard. "Yes." "Why?" Anastasia did not answer. She would not tell them. She would not give them the satisfaction of knowing she had left a piece of herself at the castle, that she had come back with a shattered heart. "It does not matter," her mother said, standing as well. "What matters is that you are back. And now we can resume our plans." "Plans?" Anastasia repeated, though she already knew. "The wedding," Max replied, getting up and walking toward her. He stopped far too close, invading her personal space. "You have run long enough, Anastasia. You have had your time to reflect." Anastasia stepped back. "I already told you I am not going to marry you. And I already told you that it is not yours to decide," Max shot back, the smile vanishing, replaced by something darker. "Our families have already decided. The agreement is made. You are mine." "I am not. You are." Max took another step forward, real threat in his voice now. "And the sooner you accept that, the better for everyone." Anastasia looked at her parents, searching for support, any sign they did not agree. But all she found was indifference. "Max is right," her father said. "You have caused enough trouble. It is time for you to fulfill your duty to this family." "My duty?" Anastasia felt anger boil up. "My duty is to marry a man who betrayed me, who humiliated me, who feels nothing for me beyond possession." "Feelings do not matter," her mother said, her voice cutting. "Marriages are business, agreements. And you will honor what was decided." Anastasia looked at the three of them, the people who were supposed to love her, protect her, want her happiness, and saw only strangers. "No," she said firmly. "I will not." And she turned to leave. Anastasia left the room before she lost control. She ran up the stairs, went into her bedroom, and locked the door. She leaned her back against it, breathing hard, her heart racing. She needed a plan before they forced the wedding. She needed a way out. But all she could think about was Raylan. And now she was trapped here, alone, without him. The tears came, and this time Anastasia did not fight them. She just let them fall. The days that followed were a nightmare. Max showed up every day, sometimes alone, sometimes with her parents. Always pressing, always insisting. The wedding will be next week. I have already ordered your dress. My father is organizing the ceremony. Anastasia refused. She shouted. She fought. But they did not listen. Anastasia dreamed of Raylan. Every night. She dreamed he came for her. That he saved her. That he carried her back to the castle and never let her go again. But they were only dreams. And every morning she woke up alone, trapped, without hope. But that night, Anastasia decided she had to escape. She packed a small bundle and decided to go to a village, somewhere, or return to the castle, to ask Raylan for help. She would not wait any longer. She would not give them the chance to force her to the altar. She would not become a prisoner in a marriage she had not chosen. She opened the window, looked down. The roof of the annex was just below. If she could climb onto it, she could jump into the garden and run. Where to? She did not know. It did not matter. Just away. Anastasia took a deep breath and jumped. She landed on the roof with an impact that knocked the air from her lungs. She rolled, regained her balance, and kept going down. When her feet hit the garden grass, the relief was so great, it almost made her cry. Free. She was free. She started running toward the gates when she heard, "Going somewhere, darling?" Anastasia froze. Max. He was there. Leaning against the fence, arms crossed, that damned smile on his lips. "I was waiting for you to try something like this," he said, pushing away from the fence and walking toward her. "I thought, she is too stubborn to just accept this. She will try to run." So I decided to keep watch. Anastasia stepped back. "Stay away from me." "No." Max kept coming. "I have let you slip through my fingers too many times. At the ball. At the castle. But now it is over. I am not yours." "You are," Max roared and his eyes gleamed. "The wolf. You always were, and tonight I am going to prove it." And then he shifted, skin giving way to fur, bones cracking, body growing, changing. In seconds, where a man had been, there was now a wolf. Large, dark brown, eyes locked on her with a hunger that had nothing to do with food. Anastasia did not think. She only reacted. She shifted too. The change came faster this time, natural, as if her body already knew what to do. And then there were two wolves, circling each other in the silent garden. Max attacked first. He leapt, teeth bared, aiming for her neck. Anastasia dodged, twisting sharply, her paws tearing at the grass. She counterattacked, biting his flank and ripping a howl of pain from him. But Max was bigger, stronger, more experienced. He knocked her down, his weight crushing her. Anastasia tried to break free, but he pinned her, his teeth dangerously close to her throat. And then he shifted back to human form. Too quickly for Anastasia to keep up. He was on top of her. She still a wolf, he naked. And there was something terrible in his eyes. "Change back," he ordered, his voice rough. "Shift to your human form. Now." Anastasia growled, trying to bite, but he tightened his grip on her neck, cutting off her air. "I said now." And her body obeyed against her will. The reverse shift happened, leaving Anastasia vulnerable, exposed, afraid. Max smiled. Much better. "Let me go." Anastasia struggled, pushing, clawing. "No." Max pinned her wrists above her head with one hand. "You are mine, Anastasia, and tonight I am going to make you understand that. I am going to take what is mine by right." "No." But he did not listen. His free hand began to slide down her body. Anastasia screamed, fought. But she was not strong enough. And then she felt it. Rage, fury, but not hers. From somewhere else. As if someone were roaring inside her head, demanding blood. Raylan. Raylan was in his room when it happened. 2 weeks. 2 damned weeks since he had sent Anastasia away, and each day had been worse than the last. The rage had come back in full force. The episodes were constant now. Daily. Sometimes more than once a day. Raylan locked himself in his chambers. Shifted. Destroyed furniture. Roared until his throat bled. And nothing helped. Nothing calmed him. Because she was not there. Raylan knew, with painful, absolute certainty, that he had made the greatest mistake of his life by letting her go. Because Anastasia was not the problem. She was not the danger. She was the solution. His body knew it. The wolf knew it. Even the stubborn reason that tried to deny it knew it. But fear had been stronger. The fear of hurting her, of destroying her. And now he was destroying himself. Raylan was standing by the window staring at the moon when he felt it. Fear, panic, pain. Not his, hers. Anastasia. She was in danger. He knew it as surely as he knew how to breathe. As if there were an invisible bond between them, pulling, screaming, demanding that he go to her. Raylan did not think. He did not question. He shifted in the next instant. A huge, black, furious wolf. And he ran. He tore through the castle like a shadow, leapt out the window, hit the garden, kept running. The forest blurred past. The trees were nothing but obstacles to dodge. The ground vanished beneath his paws. Faster, faster, faster. Her scent grew stronger, mixed with another, male, familiar, and rage. The rage that exploded inside Raylan was so violent it nearly blinded him. He is touching her. He is hurting her. He is going to die. Raylan burst from the forest straight into Anastasia's garden, and he saw. Max was on top of her. Anastasia struggling, screaming, crying, no. The roar that tore out of Raylan shook the night like thunder. So loud, so ferocious that even Max froze. He turned his head, saw Raylan, and paled. Alpha King. Raylan did not give him a chance to explain. He leapt. Pure instinct, pure fury, pure need to protect what was his. He slammed into Max with the force of a derailed train, ripping him off Anastasia and throwing him several meters away. Max tried to get up, tried to shift, but Raylan was faster. He was on him before he could react. Teeth around his throat, squeezing, pressing, kill him, kill. But then he heard, Raylan, stop, please. Her voice, Anastasia. Raylan stopped. He did not let go, but he stopped. He looked at her. She was sitting on the grass, her face streaked with tears, but alive, safe. Do not kill him, she begged, her voice broken. He is not worth it. Just stay with me. Please. Max used the distraction to shove him off. Raylan growled but let him go. Let the coward flee, stumbling, scrambling back to the house. Because only one thing mattered now. Her. Raylan shifted back to human form. Naked, panting, shaking with the adrenaline and fury still pounding through him. Anastasia looked at him and started crying again. You came. She whispered. You really came. Raylan closed the distance between them in 2 strides. He knelt in front of her, pulled her into his arms. I am so sorry, he said into her hair, his voice breaking. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I never should have sent you away. I was a complete fool to think it would be better for you far from me. Anastasia clung to him, sobbing against his bare chest. He was going to. I know. Raylan held her tighter. But he will not. Not anymore. Never again. Because I am never leaving you. Do you understand? Never. No matter what happens. No matter what I am. You are mine. And I will protect you. always. They stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other, just feeling. Then Raylan pulled back enough to look into her eyes. "Come with me," he said. "Back to the castle. Back home." "They will not let me," Anastasia murmured. "I am not asking for permission." Raylan's voice came out hard, final. "You are mine now. And no one, not your family, not that coward, is going to stop it." Anastasia nodded, and something lit up in her eyes. Hope, relief, love. They shifted back to wolf form and ran, back into the forest, back to the castle, back home, to where she had always belonged. Dawn was just breaking when they passed through the gates of Silvercrest. They shifted back to human. Servants appeared, eyes wide, but no one spoke. They only bowed. Madame Crowley appeared on the steps, already holding blankets to cover them. "Prepare the main chambers," Raylan ordered, "and send messengers to her family, to the council, to whoever needs to know." "Yes, Your Majesty. What is the message?" Raylan looked at Anastasia. "That I have found my queen." Madame Crowley smiled, truly smiled, for the first time since Raylan had known her. "With pleasure, Your Majesty." Eleni came running, still in her nightgown, hair flying everywhere. "Anastasia!" She threw herself at them, hugging them both, laughing and crying at the same time. "You came back. I knew it. I knew you would come back." Anastasia laughed, hugging the girl. "I came back, for good this time." "For good," Raylan confirmed. Hours later, after Anastasia had bathed, eaten, and rested, the messengers returned. Her family had sent a reply accepting the king's decision. They had no reason to refuse. He was the king. Max had not replied. But informants reported he had fled the city, a coward to the very end. The council, however. "They request an audience, Your Majesty," the messenger reported, "to discuss the choice of queen." Raylan had expected that. He knew they would come with objections. Anastasia had no title, no lands, no important alliances. "Tell them I will be there," he answered. Anastasia squeezed his hand. "You do not have to fight for me against them. If they do not approve—" "They will approve," Raylan cut in, kissing her fingers. "Because if it is not you, I will not marry anyone. And they know it." The meeting went exactly as Raylan had predicted. The counselors sat around the table, their expressions ranging from disapproval to resignation. "Your Majesty," the head counselor began, "we understand that you have affection for the young lady. But as queen, she brings me peace," Raylan interrupted. "For the first time in years, I do not feel fury eating away at every waking moment. I do not have episodes when she is near. I do not destroy everything around me when I hear her." The counselors exchanged glances. "You wanted me to marry," Raylan went on. "You wanted me to find someone who could calm the curse. Well, I have. She is that person, and I will marry her, with or without your approval." Silence fell over the room. Then the eldest counselor, a wolf with white hair and wise eyes, leaned forward. "Your Majesty, may I ask a question?" "You may." "Do you love her?" Raylan did not hesitate. "Yes." "And does she love you?" "Yes." The old man smiled. "Then you have our blessing, all of us." The other counselors nodded, some reluctantly, others with clear relief. "But," the old man added, "we would like to ask something." "What?" "That the wedding ceremony include the marking, before the court. So everyone can see she is truly yours." Raylan looked at Anastasia, who had slipped quietly into the room during the meeting, and now stood near the door. She nodded. "I agree," Raylan said. The ceremony was set for 3 days later, long enough to prepare, to invite, to arrange, but not long enough for Raylan to change his mind. Not that he would. Not when he woke every morning with Anastasia in his arms. Not when he heard her laughing with Eleni. Not when he watched her play the piano and felt a peace so deep it almost hurt. On the night before the ceremony, Anastasia went to his chambers. She knocked, entered, closed the door behind her. "Nervous?" she asked. "No," Raylan answered honestly. "And you?" "A little." Anastasia walked up to him, sliding her hands over his chest. "I never thought I would marry a king. And I never thought I would marry at all." Raylan pulled her closer. "But here we are." "Here we are," she echoed with a smile. And then she kissed him. The ceremony took place in the great hall. It was decorated with white and silver flowers, candles everywhere, the entire court in attendance. Anastasia walked in dressed in elegant white. Raylan waited at the altar, his heart pounding so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. When she reached his side, he took her hand and whispered, "Beautiful." Anastasia blushed. "You too." The officiant began to speak, but Raylan barely listened. He was too busy looking at her, memorizing every detail, every curve, every breath, until they reached the important part. "And now," the officiant announced, "the Alpha King will mark his queen, sealing the bond before all." Raylan gently turned Anastasia, baring her neck. She tilted her head, giving him access. "It will hurt," he warned softly. "I know," she whispered back. "Do it." Raylan took a deep breath. Let the wolf surface just enough for his canines to lengthen. And he bit. Anastasia gasped, her body tensing, but she did not scream. She only tightened her fingers around his. Raylan felt the exact moment the bond locked into place. It was like an explosion of light, of heat, of something so pure and powerful that it made every cell in his body sing. And then he saw it. A golden thread, bright, connecting his chest to hers, pulsing with a life of its own. Mate. She was his mate. She'd always been. Raylan released her neck, licking away the blood, sealing the wound. He turned Anastasia back to face him. Her eyes were shining, not with pain, with joy. "I feel it," she whispered. "I feel you." "I feel you too," Raylan answered, awestruck. Then the eldest counselor stood, staring at them with open amazement. "You cannot see it," he said, his voice shaking. "But I can. It is like a spider web. The curse." He stopped, blinked, looked again. "Gone," he finished, almost disbelieving. "The curse is simply gone. It disappeared the moment the bond was sealed." Absolute silence fell over the hall. Raylan looked at Anastasia. She looked back, and they understood. The mate bond was not just connection, not just love. It was healing. He had saved her, and she had freed him. Together, they had broken a centuries-old cycle.